Welcome to the Shamanic Author Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Worm. Are you a coach, holistic, or spiritual entrepreneur struggling to write your first book? The Shamanic Author Podcast will help you release that resistance inside yourself so you can access that state of being that writing requires. See, society has it all wrong. From a young age, we're told that we have to have the house, the degree, the fancy car to be happy. But the truth is, we have to become that state of happiness, and then the material success follows. We are human beings, not human havings, right? So I'm so excited for this episode today. Let's explore energy, alternative health, first-time author challenges, and book publishing marketing strategies. If this sounds like you, I want you to head over to mountainmindtricks.com/ultimate-guide for a free Ultimate Aspiring Author Guide. There's 3 steps in there that'll teach you exactly how to write a book that makes a big difference in your spiritual business, in your holistic or coaching practice. And if you want to know when the next episode is live, get updates, and learn more about the shamanic writing process, follow me on Instagram at mountain_mind_tricks. That's Mountain Mind Tricks with underscores. Follow the podcast and subscribe to the show to make sure you get the notifications when I release new episodes. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. I'm so excited for my guest, Amelia Zachry. She's a blogger, aspiring author. Her book's coming out soon. I'm so excited to have her here because she's going through this editing phase that I love to talk about, that my own experience was so powerful. And Amelia, could you introduce yourself and let us know how you got into writing, kind of your story? What was your journey like? What brought you here to this moment?
Hey, so I am. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And so my writing journey began about a year ago, really. I was born and raised in Malaysia, and I moved to America about 8 years ago, and I have 2 beautiful children. And that's where my story begins. I was talking about the trauma that I had endured in my past. I've spoken to it with my husband, and we are raising 2 children, and we were talking about how we raise our kids and the truths that we reveal to them. And we came up with this idea of me putting it down on paper, so I have the truths out, processed on paper, should I ever want to tell it to them. And that idea became a book. And so I wrote my first draft, and I'm in the middle of editing it, like you were saying, and I'm finding it the best way I could have possibly thought of to tell my children the story about the trauma that I had gone through.
Oh, that's so amazing. What an amazing reason to write a book. There's a lot of power behind that. And I love this idea of conscious parenting, I guess is what I would term it as, and that's just my own words for it. But this idea of conscious parenting, I think, is so important in the whole world. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Like, it really does mean a lot. And um I want to ask, if you don't mind, like, what was kind of generally some of the trauma that you went through that drove you to write this book?
So when I was 19, my second year in college, I was raped. And so that was a secret I held on to for many years. And only in writing this book have I really found the power in my voice to be able to really say that it happened. And in this process, I actually found that I was accepting that it was a violation, because for the longest time, I was of the mind that it was my fault, and that I could have prevented it, should I have wanted to, or should I have known better, or I should not have put myself in a position to be raped, or I should not have been in a place where I could have been raped. And I thought that it was all my fault, until very recently I came to a realization that it wasn't my fault, and there was nothing that I could have done to have prevented it. And so, yeah, that trauma really I carried as a secret until I accepted it. Was only when I Until I had accepted it as a violation, was when I actually found the strength and the power in me to voice it and to share my story with the people around me. And I guess a lot more people now that I'm putting it into the book.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And I really do appreciate your story because I think it's so much more common than we think out there. And I know that's something you're very passionate about is helping kind of I don't want to use my words here, but really helping express that rape culture more and make like break the stigma of it more so there's less women carrying that secret out there, right?
Yeah, and the rape culture, because that's the whole culture that put me into silence. It's a whole culture around it that told us how girls should behave and how girls should dress and where girls should be and what is and what isn't safe for girls. And really, like I just read this recently in a book. They talked about this double standards we have for men and women, and how there was an incident on campus, and then all the women were told to stay indoors and not be roaming the campus at night. And then someone, as a joke, put out a note that said men should stay indoors in order to avoid rape from happening. And then then you all these men are furious and angry, and like that's unfathomable that somebody would expect men to be indoors and that men should be bound to any strict um, codes, right? And so this is the culture that we live in, and this is the culture that allows for these things to perpetuate and continue in our society. And I think that it's important that we have conversations like this. It's important that we have conversations like I want to convey in my book, so that people are aware that this is something that we need to do away with.
Oh, thank you so much. And just from my own experience and what I've seen in my own life, I haven't gone through anything like that before, but what I guess if I think about my own experience and try and relate to this, there was, I guess, in high school, like half of our football team was involved in like raping women, raping girls at parties. And I think that's super common of these kind of high profile people or popular people or whatever in that time in my life in high school. And it's always something that's just, I just don't understand how it's even possible that somebody would do something like that. And I think it's so much more common. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for bringing this message out because it's something like I believe you, like it needs to change. It has to change. And I can't imagine what holding on to that secret must have felt like. Was that like what was that like for you holding on to that secret?
It's a very strange thing, right? It was a secret to me, but no one else knew that I had the secret. And so I was in conversations where people talk about rape and talk about sexual assault and sexual violence. And a lot of people who have not been around it have very little sensitivities to the issue or understanding or even empathy, because I've heard my own friends say things like, well, she was there at that certain time of the night. Like, what was she doing there? And my answer, I answer myself in my mind, well, like just being out at night should not be a reason to be raped, right? And I listen to these conversations and I cringe and I bite my tongue because I don't say anything anymore. And now that I'm out in the open and like I've blogged about it and I post in social media and talk about rape and talk about sexual assault a lot, and it's out there and people know it. Now I find like I sometimes cringe, like wonder what it is like for people to know that secret about me. But I also find people being more careful, or people being more cautionary when they speak to me about these things. And I, or some people are curious and they want to know more. And I find that that gives me meaning and purpose, right? That's the point of using my voice, being able to instigate conversations about rape, talking about sexual violence. And that's, I think, one step towards ending rape culture. It's a step forward for us.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Just sharing your story and having the courage and showing, the way I see it anyways, like you're helping so many women just by sharing your story. It's so powerful. Just showing them that you have the courage and they could too. And I really just thank you again. Like, I really appreciate your message. And tell me more about
I,
how. Go ahead.
I must say, like you were saying, that I'm giving people courage, but I think that I found my voice also amidst the women's marches, amidst the Me Too movement, amidst listening to all these high profile cases, right? Brock Turner and Brett Kavanaugh and Harvey Weinstein and all the women who have come forward. And I think I've found strength and power through that. And I think like that secret became less and less a burden to carry, knowing that other people are going through the same thing. So I thank those women who have come before me to show us what that power can look like. And thank you, by the way, for having this conversation at all. I appreciate this.
Oh, thank you. I yes, thank you so much. And it's such a violation of human rights. It's something we have to talk about, and we have to, work on stopping the rape culture. So I really like thank you for your message, and I want to go a little bit deeper into to your writing process, because I can only imagine writing a memoir about this must have been really tough, as far as kind of bringing everything back up and reliving almost in some senses. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, the writing process, I wrote the draft and I didn't think about it, right? I just told myself, I mean, I heard from writing classes and all this where put all your thoughts down on paper and then you can like look at it and fix it later, right? So I did that, and that was cathartic just to get it all out and have it on the pages and to look through the pages and see my life from a different perspective. It was as if I was looking from the outside now, and they gave me a lot of insight on my own perspectives of life and my values and my things that I cared about and things that I had experienced. And truly experiencing it on the pages was really cathartic. And then we went into editing, and that was when I found that, I'm working with a coach and an editor, and so we are going through the pages and we're doing developmental edits, and I'm looking at, and she's asking all these questions, digging deeper and digging deeper. And in a sense, it's almost become part of my therapy. It's very therapeutic to go through and answer those questions from a mature narrator point of view, right? To be able to like look outside from the outside and look at my story and look at the experiences. And it really did allow me to heal a lot. And I think it's I've from the point that I started writing the book till where I am now, I feel like I've grown from beginning to heal to a place of growth right now. And I'm looking back and learning from my experiences. It is funny to say that I'm learning from my experiences now, like since I've actually walked the path to get to where I am now. But writing really did something different. It allowed me to look from a different perspective that allowed me to grow more than I thought that I could.
Oh, I love this so much because, as you know, the podcast is the shamanic author, and there's something that I discovered as a writer, and I wanted to explore this idea more, and it's exactly what you're talking about, and for me, I label it here's I call it the shamanic writing process, but really, what it is the second phase is that editing phase where you're really going line by line, or like you're talking about the developmental editing, and it's like you're saying it's almost this therapeutic way of like kind of going line by line through the trauma, through something. As a writer, you're learning line by line, and there's this, I guess for me, what I want to explore more is there's this transformation inside you. But I also think that this is embedding the book with transformation, which means the reader is going to have such a huge experience just from reading your book, right?
I think it's hard to separate that thought of like what the reader is going to get and what I'm putting into the pages, right? Because um, inevitably the book is meant to be published. Well, hopefully, well, the hope is that it gets published and that I have readers who are reading my book, and I cannot help but think about my um what do you call it, the end game. Like when somebody reads the book, what are they going to get from this, and what are they going to learn from this experience and this experience. and I have an in that processing of what I'm going to deliver for my reader. I think I am growing. I see things in a different way because then I find myself becoming more optimistic and hopeful because I know that it's going to say something to somebody or touch someone, or give somebody an insight, or give somebody a questioning view of a subject that I'm talking about.
Oh, I love that. And is there almost like a release? Like you said, there's therapeutic value for here, but is there like you're talking about this healing? Like, is the trauma feeling less and less, more and more manageable, easier to learn from? Those kinds of things. Is there a direct result of healing mentally, emotionally from this process for you?
I think for me it's I've distanced myself a long way from the trauma. This happened almost 20 years ago, right? So I was 19, I was very young. And writing the book, I went into my 19-year-old mind and recalled every single step of the way and all the things that I've done and all the things I was thinking and all the trying to draw out the person that I was in that moment in time. And here I am 20 years later. It's not only therapeutic. I think it is a true sense of healing and acceptance in finding the power of my voice. Like being able to use my voice now is something greater than healing. I find it I call it a place of growth because I am now able to use my voice for something else. I no longer hold on to that secret. I don't no longer hold on to that truth as a secret, but as the truth. It is the truth, and it is something that has happened, and now I'm able to share with others and use my voice. And it's no longer just like, trying to keep a secret anymore. Or
Oh,
it's
wow.
no longer just trying to forget the incident. For a long time I lived my life trying to just forget it. Like it's something that happened, it's terrible, but there's nothing I can do about it now, and let's just move on. Now I'm through my writing, I found that I am able to accept it as part of my life and part of my journey. And there are no we have this saying among my friends, we say there are no wrong cards. So that whatever happened, there's no good or bad, it just is. And I've come to an understanding of that through my writing, that it no longer holds me ransom. And it's okay. I'm okay. I'm at peace with what has happened, and I'm at peace with where I am now. And I think writing has brought me that.
Wow, that's huge. That is a milestone, at least from my point of view. It sounds like there's this major transformation happening inside you, and I'm just so thankful you are here on the podcast to express this journey, because I think there's so many authors out there that are, or folks that are trying to write a book, or maybe they just started, or I think the biggest thing is there's so many people out there that have a book idea, but they're too scared to try it. And here you are, you're proving that you can, like, no matter what, you can write that book. And I just want to say thank you, because this is one of my missions in life, is to help more people write their book, because I think writing your book, like you said, it's probably one of the most healing things you could ever do in your life. And as you said, it's I think you would agree with that, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of people who I from my writing classes, I hear a lot of people holding back on their book idea because you're afraid that no one's going to hear your story, or no one is interested, or no one wants. I think these are the common bugs for writers, right? And I feel like now, me being an emerging author, like I don't have anything published yet, but I feel like as soon as I found my voice, I wanted to use it. And I also realized through my blog and my Facebook and Instagram, people have reached out to me just from those posts. They've reached out to me to share their experience with me, and that was very surprising because I didn't think that I was going to hear from people. And I thought I was I put out these blogs and I expected like people to say, hey, like, oh, that was great, like, oh, good job on the article, on the story or something. But I got these long messages from people saying like, hey, I suffered a trauma when I was such and such age, and this happened to me, and I just wanted to share with you. And they found a safe place to share too. And I think that's what it's about, is getting your word out there and sharing. And whatever ideas you have, you probably think that it's not a great idea, or you probably think that there's no one listening. But somehow, like, if it's not out there, no one's going to hear, right? No one's going to listen to it. But if you take the chance and go for it, chances are someone's listening. And so that, with that mindset, I put together this book.
Oh, that's so amazing. Like, just, yeah, I think that's so true. I know I went through that, and I think most first time authors go through that of like, who is even going to read this book, or who cares about my story, or this and that. And it's really just this, I think, this story we tell ourselves because we're probably a little scared. I know I was scared the first book I wrote, and I'm curious if there's. I think the one of the most common themes that I hear with first time authors is kind of this imposter feeling, and I just want to ask you. I want to be really direct and ask you: is that something that has come up for you through this process? Is there a little bit of imposter syndrome? Because I think that's something really important to talk about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And well, to clarify, imposters, in like, I do. I need a lot of validation for my work. I am very insecure with my writing, and I have, to be honest, my process, like, three people read it before I post anything. I have my I have my husband read it, and he'll read it, and then I'll have a friend read it, and they'll read it and then tell me like, oh, this, whatever they think about it, and the next person. And then I'm like, okay, I think this is good enough. And yet when I put it up there, I'm like, oh my goodness, is this good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough a writer? Is anybody listening? Like, does anybody care? And I think there's something that's hard to get over, but I just kind of push through, because there's no way of telling. Like, even best-selling authors have people who don't like their work, right? And there's no way of telling whether they'll. I keep asking my husband, like, is this good enough? Is this substantial enough? Do I sound like an amateur, or do I sound like not like a proper writer? And he's like, what is a proper writer? And he told me, he said, no one no one can tell you anything that you will believe, because the only thing that you actually believe is when someone says that your work is shit. So, like he said, like, you got to start believing in yourself. And I think the imposter syndrome still lives strong, but I've come to a point where I am able to say, go for it and see what happens.
Oh, yeah, I love that so much, and I think for me, I do help authors with imposter syndrome, and I think to me one of the keystones is like you're saying is just taking action and not to dismiss it at all by any means because it's a very real feeling and it's I've had it and I've gone through it and it's so important to take that action though. So I just want to say thank you for sharing because it's like this is such a common theme of first time authors and it's so powerful just to talk about it and just to demystify it because there is light at the end of the tunnel. It is possible. And for me, I think mine was like when I had that published book in my hand, like suddenly all of a sudden I was officially this published author and I feel like that was the moment. That was the moment when all of that am I good enough just disappeared in my writing and I think that's really common for a lot of authors.
So it does go away then.
Well, I think it's kind of this cycle where when we level up like in a video game or whatever we want to call it, but where we kind of go to the next level, it comes back, but it's lesser and lesser in my experience. And then the next level, like maybe instead of writing a memoir, it's writing like a whole book series or like starting a new business. It's just whenever we level up, there's that imposter syndrome. And so to me, I've learned to think of it as the imposter is really all it means is that you're growing and that you're a little bit uncomfortable because you're growing and it is a good thing.
I like that. Yes, a little bit. Discomfort is allows you to birth creativity, right? Because I think some form of self scrutiny is vital to creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the only time it's a problem is when it really starts to uh, restrict the creativity, and that's where the person has this book idea for 30 years and they haven't written a word, right? That's where the imposter is like a really big problem. And obviously for you, you're writing, you're editing, like this book is going to be real, like in somebody's hands soon. Like it's going to happen like in the next year or two or whatever it is, and that's exciting, isn't it?
It's so exciting just to see that. To that's so I'm in the last few chapters, and I feel like this has been the hardest part of the ride, because I just like I'm waiting for that moment where it, like you say, you level up and it goes to the next level, and I'm looking for publishers, or I'm now getting the book out there. And so yeah, it is exciting to think about the level up.
Yeah, absolutely. And oh wow, yeah, I think for me the editing process was so hard because it was like, my first book, I didn't know anything about writing. I'm just a firefighter, right? That was the mindset I came from. And um it was so like, I guess when I wrote my first draft and I handed it to somebody to read it, and they were just like, this is like pretty incoherent, really. It was really hard to hear that because I poured my kind of life and soul into it. And then but now that I look back, it was a blessing of somebody just telling you, like, hey, this needs some serious editing. And it took a lot of editing my first book, but I learned so much. My editor basically gave me a degree, I feel like, because when I got that first draft back, it was just red. That's all I saw was red. It's like, oh my gosh, I need a lot of help here. And so it's so amazing that you're working with a coach. And I would love to hear a little bit more. Is the coach helping you with the writing process, with the editing process, with the therapeutic value, or is it kind of wrapped all up in one?
I think I get all of that. Not not I think she didn't sign up for it, but I think she's giving me all of that. She I'm kidding, but she is helping me with the writing process and editing. But in that process of editing, I think I'm receiving therapeutic help. Like she's able to, not directly, but I think when she asks me the questions she asks me, and she poses questions about experiences, and I have to think about it to write. I think that's where the therapeutic value is in the writing, the things that she's asking for. But yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, the reds, the reds on the page. Oh my goodness! When I first started, I'm a first time writer. I have no, I my background is in business, and I have I got a degree in business, and like I have no writing background whatsoever. And so I started writing this book, and I had no idea what the publishing process was, whatever. I have no, I actually am not sure if I entirely understand this process, but I'm taking it one step at a time. And that's the way I can process it. I think like if I take the first step, and then I'll figure out what the next step is, and I'll go ahead, proceed according to that. And so I decided to go with the coach because of that, because I had no idea what I was looking into. Someone asked me the other day, don't you just write a book and then you just publish it? And then I said, apparently,
Yeah.
apparently not, because I'm learning a lot now. But so she's helping me with the whole process. Like she's helping me. She started helping me with the writing and the coaching me with my writing skills. And I was learning about craft and learning about all this literary jargon that I had no idea. I had never heard of. I had to Google some stuff. But I was growing and I was learning. And through the edits, I'm receiving therapeutic value. And she's also helping me with the process of um, going into publishing and all that.
Oh, that's awesome. And so I want to step back a little bit and go back to when you wrote your first draft. Was there this almost, like you said, it was cathartic, and I'll be honest, that word doesn't really speak to me very well. Probably because I don't know the definition, but what I'm hearing is that it was really like, I guess what I want to know is that, was there this kind of trance almost, or was there almost this channeling of the story of the writing? Was it almost, it just flew right out of you? Was there that experience for you?
When I was writing, you mean?
Yes, your first draft.
Yes. Yes. So I started with a story. So I started with the center story, and I kind of I wanted to tell the story about the trauma, so I started there, and I wrote the scenes, and I wrote the whole story about the trauma, and then I started developing it from there, like for before and after. So I kind of it grew the book chapter by chapter, putting together stories that I was going to tell to kind of tell a whole big story. And so yeah, it was exhilarating. It was a very big feeling. I had a big celebration. I had it ready. I had my first draft ready, and we went out for a big celebration because that was a big feat to even just get all those words together into something that I could call a manuscript. And I had people read it for me. I had a beta testing group, and I had a few friends and people who knew other people. Some people I knew, some people I didn't know. I got them together and to read the book, and they read the book, and then we had a Zoom call just to get feedback. And part of it is imposter syndrome. I wanted to know that it was good enough for me to proceed to actually try and think about publishing this book. And so I was happy that I got good feedback. Maybe they were being kind, but I hope they weren't. I hope they were being honest, and I trust that they were being honest. And so they that kind of gave me the confidence to like take the next step, which was hire a coach.
Oh, I love that so much. And I want to go a little bit deeper. Was there, I guess I want to ask you, are you spiritual or do you believe in God or anything like that?
I am spiritual. I believe in a higher power. I
Okay.
believe
And
that there is something that connects all of us, and that's part of my healing journey. I was able to heal and feel alive again. So I also, I guess I'll just add here that after my trauma, that kind of triggered bipolar disorder for me, and so I struggled many years with bipolar disorder as well. And so with that, I felt like through my mental struggles and all my struggles, I found myself in a spiritual journey trying to find meaning in all of this. First, first I get raped, and then now I have this almost debilitating state of episodes, swinging from hypomanic episodes to depressive episodes, and like I'm supposed to live in this limbo of my mind. And so I became very spiritual, and I believe that there is a power, and I believe that we're all connected, and that I have a purpose, and that I might not know the reason, or I might not know the true meaning of my being yet, but I am at a place where I'm at peace with where I am.
wow, that's so beautiful. Yeah, that's so amazing to feel that peace where you are now. Just thank you for saying that. That is really powerful, especially after all the trauma and everything you've gone through. Like to feel this peace where you are right now. That is, I think there's so many women out there that want that. And I want to ask, did it ever feel like there was this higher power coming into that first rough draft writing, as in like that flow state, that creativity, those stories when you're writing them? Did it feel like there was some sort of higher power or something helping you with this process?
I feel like just being able to connect with my inner self, my inner voice, my true self, and being honest with myself, and being raw and truthful with my pain, and raw and truthful with my state of being. I think it allowed for that creativity. There's a we talk about masculine and feminine powers, and the masculine is all in your head, and the feminine is more intuitive and nurturing and loving. And I found that like trying to balance that, trying the masculine is supposed to be assertive and um, decision making, and everything happens in the masculine power. And I feel like having a good balance of that allowed for that creativity to flow out of me, and to allow me to speak from the heart, so to say.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, the masculine and feminine and harmonizing, balancing those is it's so interesting. And I think, yeah, exactly what you're talking about was my experience with all the books I've written is that highest self comes in and connects me with a deeper aspect to myself or a deeper aspect of something I wasn't really sure was actually there until I write it out, and then that editing process is like it just blows me away every single time. Is like I just there's something deeper, or maybe I can't believe I wrote that, or there's
Yes,
just
I
is
absolutely. I,
that
I feel that sometimes, like, I wrote these things. It came out like it came out, and it flows and it flows, and I write and I write and I write and write. And then my husband's reading, and then he reads me a line. He's like, "This is good." I'm like, "What? Say it again." I don't remember writing that. It's
yeah.
almost like there's a power that comes over, and like it comes out naturally and
Yeah.
flawlessly.
Oh wow, what an amazing writer's journey you were on. You're like in the thick of it, and this is why I wanted you on the podcast. It's just such a great interview. So thank you so much. And I guess I'm curious on you've talked about publishing, and um, what is your idea, or what are you planning for publishing? What's your thoughts on this?
So right now, I am going a little old school and trying for traditional publishing first to see how that goes. I just wanted to see like how I, I just want to test the waters, and like I don't really have big expectations, and I'm kind of looking at this as with a sense of adventure and mystery. Like an exciting journey just to try, and I wanted to just try it out and see what traditional publishing is all about. And I guess if it doesn't work out, I would probably be looking at self-publishing.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah, I love that. And what is
Not
drawing
to
you
say, I
to
mean, not to say that there's anything like that. It's a second, what do you call that? Like a backup plan or anything. But I just thought that like I wanted to try and like test out the waters. Not, I know a lot of people choose to do self-publishing upright, but I don't have the um, courage, I guess, to go right away and do it. And so I'm trying to see what traditional publishing looks like, and just for the fun of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so amazing. And so what is drawing you toward traditional publishing?
I don't know. I think like that, all the books that we read, all these, not all the books. I'm sorry, like a lot of these books that we read, and authors that we like, that I like, and I've there's something about being published by one of those houses, that just sounds appealing, to have my name with one of these publishers that one of my favorite authors have been on.
Oh,
i
that's
don't
so awesome. Yeah.
I don't really have like a big, like I said, I don't have big expectations. I'm like, this is my first time, and I thought that, I try it. I know it's everyone tells me it's the hardest way to publish, and it's almost impossible, but I thought, why not? Like, give it a go and see if that's the route for me. If that is what's meant to be, then there are no wrong cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you ever heard of hybrid publishing before?
No, I have not.
So this is kind of what the podcast is focused on is there's an aspect here of the writer's journey and the beauty is what we've been talking about for a while, and then the hybrid publishing where it's a publishing house that's way smaller that helps the writer go through and either teaches them how to self-publish or does all the publishing and facilitates all the editing. And so it's a really small publishing house where it's not this gigantic machine that's going to churn out books every year, right? It's much more intimate publisher
Yeah,
author relationship, and it's just a very different, and it's very new in the last year or two. It's really been coming up, and so maybe that's something that a lot of first time authors can think about or talk about, or there's not just traditional and
for
self-publishing,
sure.
there's also the hybrid, which is
Yeah,
really interesting because it's like I said, it's new and upcoming, and I think there's some value, and there's definitely some. I think the hybrid publishing there's a stigma to it still. There's been cases of like vanity publishing is what you hear it called in the industry, where it's like people getting ripped off and things like that, and it's like, yeah, that's definitely out there with hybrid publishing. So you just have to be a little bit careful, but it's like this is I think it comes down to like how much time do you have, because self-publishing, like for me, I think it takes like a solid 3 months of like learning everything and then doing it because there's so much to it, right?
Yeah.
But it's easy. It's possible. It's not, for people that say self-publishing is really hard and time consuming, that's not true. It just takes a lot of effort. That's all it is.
I think I'm thankful that we live in a time and space where we have these options. Like
Yeah.
that's it's really cool that you can do go traditional publishing, you can do hybrid publishing, you can do self-publishing, and there are all these avenues to market yourself in like Instagram and Facebook and all Twitter and all these avenues that you can market yourself. And like I'm just grateful that we're in a such an exciting time where all these options are available to people like us.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And so I want to go back a little bit and ask you about, because I think there's an important distinction of, you have a writing coach, and I don't know your relationship, but it sounds like it goes a little bit deeper than just writing. But I want to ask you, like, was getting a writing coach critical for you? Because I think first time authors sometimes a coach is almost necessary, because of there's a lot that goes on to writing a book. Like your friend said, don't you just write a book and publish it? Like, no, it doesn't
Yeah.
work like that. Sorry.
Definitely. Like I think like I have learned so much in the months that I've worked with her that I would not have been able I mean like I would not have been able to learn all that on my own, definitely. I mean I bet like people go to school for this stuff, right? People go to school to learn how to write. And even then like she's holding my hand through the publishing process, like writing book proposals, writing query letters, and trying to understand what's next. How do you book an agent, how do you find a publishing house, and all these things that I think are critical, not only like to help me, but I think it gives me confidence in knowing that like I'm being guided by somebody who knows the ropes and I'm not going into this blind.
Yeah.
So I do think it has been vital in my process.
Oh,
And
that's
even
so
just
beautiful.
just just in the writing, it has been incredibly helpful. The way like she talks about things like, oh, this is going into stream of consciousness, or this is I like to hear a passive voice here, or like this is some, like all these things that I did not think were I would not have thought about in the writing style and finding my voice. And like she sometimes here reads it and says like, okay, this you're going off of your voice a little bit here, and I'm like, oh, okay. So like I think a writing coach is extremely helpful for a first time writer like me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love that. I love that there's people out there just coaching on writing. That's just a dream come true for me. That's so powerful. I love it. And like I said, my passion is as many books as possible getting written every year around the world. That's like, so I love hearing about this. So thank you. And I'm curious, you mentioned earlier that you were born in Malaysia, and is English your second language? I mean, your English is amazing. I'm just curious if English is your second language.
Thank you. Yes, officially it is, but in my family it was my first language. So everybody in Malaysia speaks at least two languages. That's required for our schooling. We speak Malay, and English is our second language. So everybody is required to speak Malay and English. And then people speak their mother tongues, whether it's Mandarin or Hokkien or Cantonese or Tamil or Hindi. So there's a fun fact about Malaysia.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been to Thailand. I haven't been to Malaysia yet.
Oh, we're just
Um,
on the southern border.
yeah, okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And okay. I was wondering because I can't wait to meet or talk to an author that's writing a book out of a like a real second language, where it's like a struggle. And I guess I'm curious if that's come up with you, as far as, doesn't seem like it, but has that kind of second language been a hindrance or obstacle at all for you?
Funny you mentioned it. It's not really that English is a second language that was my obstacle. It was that my English was British English. And
Oh,
so the English that
yeah.
we learn in school is British English, and so the colloquial forms and like things that we um some phrases that we use are not American, and I've had to learn to find the American equivalent. So that has been interesting. Like, you don't say this here. I'm asking my husband, like, well, you don't say this here. Why don't you say this here? And he's like, it's just not a thing. Like, find something somewhere else to say it. But yeah, so that's been my challenge. Like, well, spelling number one, I keep correcting my spelling because the spelling's different. I'm COLOUR instead of COLOR, and so those kind of things have been a little bit of a challenge, but not a terrible challenge.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's so interesting you mentioned spelling because for spelling is the bane of my existence sometimes because I'm not that young, but I've definitely born in the spell checking age. You know, I grew up with computers in high school and all that stuff, and through all my firefighting years, and to actually spell something on paper by hand, like it is rough for me. And so yeah, it comes up in my writing a lot of just the spelling is tough, isn't it?
This spelling in, like, because British English spells a lot of words differently, and so that's the English I learned. And so when I put it on paper, my word tells me that it's wrong. I'm like, what? And then I Google it. I'm like, oh, Americans spell it this way.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. And so your process, are you writing on paper first or are you going straight to a Word document or whatever it is?
I'm straight on the computer.
Yeah, I'm the same way too because I know some writers they write it all out in a notebook and I want to try this, but I can't really read my own handwriting sometimes.
Well,
Um,
I do, I
so
do, I do carry my notebook around with me. Like, for whenever I have thoughts, I write down things that I'm thinking, and then I go and write on the paper, on the computer. But I cannot write on paper first because I cannot write as fast as I'm thinking.
yeah, I think that's so true. Like I can type a little faster than I can actually
Yeah.
write. And I was actually just before the podcast, I was reading one of your blogs. I think the one, let's see, yeah, it's called "I'm a Fucking Writer," and it was
How
so
apt!
amazing.
How
Yeah,
apt that I would have wrote that just before this.
and that blog was so powerful. I love the way you described of like you're kind of wanting this validation from all these other people, but then you realize, I think halfway through the blog, like what you wrote was I realized that I didn't need validation from all these other people, from my future publisher and all this. Like I need validation for myself. And I think that was like a really powerful moment in that article. And for everybody listening, like, you got to go check out her blog, and it'll all be in the show notes and everything in the links. And I just want to ask you about that article. Like, what was coming up for you when you wrote it?
I think I like we were talking about imposter syndrome. I'm constantly asking myself, like, is this a real thing? You know, that's the other thing people ask writers, right? So do you have a job? I write. I'm a writer. Like, so do you have a job? I'm a writer. But yeah, I kid about that a lot, but it never feels real to be a writer for me. And I always, my coach always says, go try it out, go tell people, like, say I'm a writer. You are a writer, you have a manuscript, you have a blog, you have all these things, you are writing, so therefore you are a writer. But I have this huge issue with self-confidence and accepting my talent or accepting my skill, or like just being able to say that I am doing something that I say I'm doing. It just feels very strange to me. And so I realized that it's really deeper than that. It's not just the writing, it's not just the calling myself a writer. It's really believing that I'm somebody worth anything. And that's where it begins, and that's where it should grow from.
Yeah, wow, that is so powerful. And yeah, when I read that article, it was very moving. Of just I could feel the emotion, the change, the actual realization inside the article. Like you were having it while you're writing. It was just like, oh my god, this blog is just incredible. Like please keep blogging because it is powerful. Like I love your blog.
Oh,
And
thank you so much.
yeah, it's so good. And I guess that it's so funny you mentioned, like, yeah, do you have a job? And I love this because this is so similar, and it just hits me like pretty deep. And And I think if you didn't know, I was a wildland firefighter for like 14 years. And so it's totally different in the city. City firefighter is completely different. And so I remember there's so many people in my family or friends that weren't in the fire business that would be like, "Oh, so what are you doing now?" It's like, "Well, I'm a firefighter." And they're like, "Well, aren't you going to get a real job?" And I know what that feels like. And the writer thing, it's like, yeah, aren't you going to get a job? And it's like, no, this is who I am. This is like what I'm supposed to be doing is writing. And I think it's so important that people are writing down their experiences, their stories, their even all the fiction books out there. It's so important. The writing, the books, the literature. We're kind of saving this time and space for somebody else in the future to read. It's pretty wild when you think about it that way, right?
It's crazy to think that somebody else is going to hear my story and is going to walk the footsteps I took to get here. And so that's just read my words on the paper, right, that came from my mind. That's really something else. It's such a, I don't know, it's a very rewarding feeling, very exciting feeling to think that somebody else is going to know what I have thought up.
Yeah. Wow, so powerful. And so where can people find you? Where can they read your blog? Where can they find you on social media?
So my blog and all updates I will update on my book, and all info about me really is on my website, ameliazachry.com. And I am on Facebook and Instagram as Brown Girl Crazy World. So find me and follow me, if and maybe you'll see something you like and help me out with my imposter syndrome. Leave a comment and follow or subscribe.
I love that so much. Yeah, and for everybody listening, all the socials are going to be in the links, and just go check out the blog, check out the Instagram. Like you're going to be blown away. Amelia is amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything else I didn't ask you? Anything you want to clarify, go deeper on? Is there anything else? I guess kind of closing thoughts here.
Closing thoughts. I think when we spoke before we started the interview, we were talking about first time writers, right? So I guess for all the first time writers out there, I'm with you, and let's see this through together and quit entertaining our imposter syndrome and just get our work out there, because there is going to be somebody who cares about our work.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I need to tell this story because it blew me away that this even happened, that it was real. So was it last summer? I think it was last summer. I was on a fire in California, and I'm sitting in this morning briefing, and this guy just keeps looking at me, and it's like, when somebody looks at you and it's like, it's not just once, it's like over and over, and it's like this 30
Yeah.
minute meeting. It's like, God, this guy's just looking at me like, this is weird. And after the meeting, he comes up to me, he's like, "Are you Thomas Worm?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's just like, and he pulls out his phone, and he opens up a couple apps, and he shows me his phone, and he's reading my book. And
Oh,
my
how
heart,
awesome.
I know my heart just sank. Shout out to Bob Meharry. Like you made my entire career as a writer. Like right then in that moment was like the one of the best feelings I've ever had. And so when you once you publish this book, like things like that will happen to you where you feel so validated and so reminded of why you wrote the book.
Oh,
Um,
I want me a bubble Harry.
Yeah, yeah, I think we all do. Absolutely. So, oh, it's so powerful. So, for all the first time authors listening, like you can do it. I promise. It's powerful. And thank you, Amelia. Thank you so much. And for everybody listening, I just hope we inspired you to start writing, to get your outline done, to reach out to that writing coach, reach out to Mountain Mind Tricks Publishing, to just do whatever you need to do to start writing that book, because I know there's one inside your mind.
Thank
So,
you so much, Thomas, for having me. This has been wonderful. I'm so glad that I was able to do this, and I thank you so much for holding space for me today, talking about such important things that are really close to my heart. Thank you.
oh, thank you, Amelia. Bless you. And I can't wait to read your book. There's an infinite amount of books floating out there in the ether, and all you have to do is tap into your highest self and write it. What if you could go out in the wilderness or international trek and experience firsthand shamanic healing, mental emotional release, and write your first draft? Writing a book isn't about the book. It's about the integration healing that book facilitates, isn't it? Because when the book heals the author, the book heals the reader. And that's an amazing thing. If you've been procrastinating writing your book for years now, you can hear that book screaming for its life every night. Join me for a backcountry breakthrough. You'll experience guided trekking, daily energy sessions, mental emotional release, and writing sessions that guarantee a rough draft by the time you get back to the trailhead. Join me for a backcountry breakthrough. Go to mountainmindtricks/backcountry-breakthrough. So go to mountainmindtricks.com/backcountry-breakthroughs. Writing a book isn't about the actual book, because there's going to be those obstacles that try and derail you from the actual writing. The key is persevering through the pain of writing every day. The book begins to highlight your emotional deep core wounds in a way that makes you want to quit writing, right? But if you stay on the course, the old beliefs, the old identity of yourself, the negative ways of thinking begin to fall away, and suddenly a new way of being starts to emerge. This is when the book begins to come alive and write itself, because in this moment, you aren't writing the book is writing itself as you have this internal transformation. This is the essence of healing through writing. Is your book screaming from the back of your mind? I know mine was. But what would happen if your healing journey stopped here? You never got over that final hump. Your regret, remorse from not writing your book was the source of mind, body, future disease. I mean, what would you tell your clients if you couldn't work anymore? Go be healed somewhere else? I mean, what would happen if your business failed because you hold yourself back from your highest self? What would it be like if you regretted the book you never wrote, and your last thoughts on your deathbed was, I wish I would have written that book? See, all these things are tragic, but it's possible for you to reach your big dream and be a #1 best-selling author. When the book heals the author, the book heals the reader. And this is a powerful concept because when books heal the reader, they sell and they go #1 bestseller. And so I'm starting this movement of healing through writing and using the breakthrough session to release the root cause of writer's block, that procrastination, that loss of motivation when you started writing your book, or you had the idea and you never started. There's one-on-one coaching calls, weekly homework and accountability. After a comprehensive health assessment, we build habits and systems and goals to keep you on track. There's MP3 guided meditations, one-on-one hypnosis. And then I really teach you how to get published, how to self-publish, or publish with my company, Mountain Mind Tricks Publishing. Then you leverage your book on podcasts, talk shows, speaking engagements, and you manifest that prosperity and passive income you're really looking for in your business. So I want you to check out breakthroughwritersblock.com and join the Healing Through Writing movement. It'll be the best thing you've ever done in your life, because writing a book will completely change everything. So go to breakthroughwritersblock.com. Again, that's breakthroughwritersblock.com. Are you a new author that's trying to wade through self-publishing of what category should I pick, find the right designer, get an editor? What about the formatting? What's the dimensions that the actual spine of the book have to be? Is it gloss or white paper? There's so many different things that goes on in publishing. And that's why I'm dedicated to helping indie authors that have gone through this healing journey through writing their own book. Publish that piece of art, publish that amazing work that could help heal others. And here's the thing, is when a book heals the author, the book heals the reader. And this is so huge. I know I say this all the time, but it's so important. And I want to help the world make a huge impact by spreading more books that heal the reader. So if this sounds like you, I want you to go to mountainmindtricks.com/publishing. Again, that's mountainmindtricks.com/publishing. And if you're wading through, should I publish on Amazon? What about Ingram Spark? How do I get my book into bookstores? What should I do to even launch a book? How do I get on podcasts? There's so many things that go into publishing. And again, that's why I'm here for you. I want to publish your book. So if this sounds like you, go to mountainmindtricks.com/publishing. Again, mountainmindtricks.com/publishing.